Let's be honest, have you ever felt like history is just this long, boring list of dates and names you have to memorize? Well, today we're going to completely throw that idea out the window. We're going to look at history for what it really is: an investigation, a quest to piece together clues and solve the ultimate cold case, the past itself. So that's the big question, right? How do we find the pieces to this massive puzzle when all the witnesses are, well, gone? That is the central mystery for every historian. It means you have to think like a detective. And, every good detective needs a toolkit. So, first step, how do we build a solid case? Okay, so if you're a detective, you build your case on hard evidence, right? Well, a historian does the exact same thing. They construct an argument from facts you can actually verify. A really useful way to practice this is with something called the Significant Relevant Statement, or SRS for short. It's all about boiling things down to the absolute bedrock of any strong historical argument. So what exactly is an SRS? Well, it's a single, powerful sentence. And it's not an opinion or a guess. It's a solid piece of information that's both relevant to your investigation and significant enough to actually matter. Think of each SRS as one undeniable clue, like a single perfect fingerprint you found at the scene. Now, this might look a little like a weird math formula from school, but stick with me because it actually teaches a really important skill. It forces you to be incredibly concise and impactful. You have to present only your strongest evidence for the case. Absolutely no fluff allowed. Okay, let's look at a real example, and you'll see exactly what I mean. On the left, you've got facts like Augustus Caesar became emperor in 27 BC. Bam, that's a building block. You can build a case with that. But on the right, something like St. Patrick's favorite color was blue. I mean, it might be interesting trivia, but it doesn't really help us solve any big historical questions. A good detective knows which clues solve the case and which are just noise. All right, so building a case with sharp, relevant facts is one thing. But, where do you even find those facts to begin with? So now we're moving from building the argument to the actual fieldwork, following the evidence trail to find those clues from the past. The very first clues we're always looking for are artifacts. Think of these as the physical items left behind at the crime scene of history. It could be a coin, a little shard of pottery, a worn-down tool, basically anything you can physically hold and examine. These things are our real, tangible connections to the people who came before us. So once we've bagged our evidence, we've got to label it, right? In our evidence locker, there are two main types of sources. You've got primary sources. These are direct from the scene. A soldier's diary, a photograph taken at the event, an eyewitness account. They're raw, they're unfiltered. Then you have secondary sources, which are analyses written after the fact, like a textbook or a documentary. They are interpretations of that primary evidence. But, and this is a huge but for any historical detective, you have got to watch out for propaganda. This is basically falsified evidence. It's information that's been twisted or even made up to push a certain agenda. A skilled historian learns to spot it, to question its motive, and to handle it with extreme caution. We've gathered our evidence. We've sorted it. Now, the investigation goes high-tech. It's time to take our clues to the lab. Welcome to the forensic side of history, where science gives us these incredible tools to really analyze and date what we found. So, what kind of cool gadgets do historians have in their forensic toolkit? Well, here are some of the big ones. These techniques allow us to place our artifacts and our findings accurately on a timeline, which, is absolutely essential for understanding the story of the past. So let's take a quick look at each one. First up, stratigraphy. And honestly, this is such a cool and pretty simple idea. Basically, the deeper an object is buried in the ground, the older it is. It's like reading the layers of the earth like pages in a history book. The further down you dig, the further back in time you go. Next is dendrochronology, which is basically using nature's own calendar. It's amazing. By counting a tree's rings, we can figure out its exact age, and if that wood was then used to build, say, a house or a ship, well, we can date those artifacts too. Each ring tells the story of a single year. Now this is some seriously cool, high-tech detective work. Geophysical surveys are pretty much X-ray machines for the ground. They let historians and archaeologists see what's buried underground, maybe the foundations of an old building or a hidden site, without ever lifting a shovel. It's how you map out the crime scene before you disturb any evidence. And of course, the famous one, carbon-14 dating. This method totally revolutionized our understanding of prehistory. It lets us find the age of organic stuff, things that were once living, like bone, wood, or cloth. We do it by measuring how much radioactive carbon-14 is left, which acts like this tiny ticking clock from the moment an organism dies. But here's something every good detective knows. You have to understand the limits of your tools. And carbon-14 dating has a big one. Its limit is about 40,000 years. After that point, there's just so little radioactive carbon left that the measurements get really unreliable. Knowing your tool's boundaries is just as important as knowing what they can do. So, we've covered how to build an argument, how to find evidence, and how to analyze it in a lab. But this isn't just about the distant past. This whole toolkit is something you can, and you absolutely should, be using every single day.
Think about it. You can use these skills to build stronger arguments using relevant facts. You can analyze the news you read by spotting the difference between primary and secondary sources. You can get way better at sniffing out propaganda or misinformation online. It's all about getting into the habit of asking, okay, but how do we know that's true?
So there you have it, the historian's detective toolkit. It's all about critical thinking, it's about evidence, and it's about a relentless search for the truth. You now have the basic tools to think like a historian. And in a world that is just flooded with information and misinformation, what mystery will you choose to investigate first?